Shalom from Jerusalem. This is Israel at War, an update on day 516 of the war, which started with the horrific massacre Hamas and other Palestinian organizations perpetrated on October the 7th, 2023. And this is a very important day in the life of the Israel Defense Forces. As we are speaking now, the outgoing Chief of General Staff, Lieutenant General Halevi, is handing over the keys to the kingdom to the incoming Chief, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, in a very modest ceremony. The two commanders are wearing fatigues, and they have a special guest, CENTCOM Commanding General Michael Eric Kurilla, who came over specifically for this event in respect to General Halevi and General Zamir. And we will today talk about the various aspects of this handover, this change at the top of the Israeli uniformed military, with our three guests, Reserve Brigadier General Doron Gavish, formerly the commander of the Israeli Air Forces Air and Missile Defense Units, and currently on reserve duty, the commander of the Israel Air and Missile Defense Task Force. General Gavish, welcome.
Shalom, Amir. Thank you.
Hi. And Oded Elam, formerly a senior Mossad official, among other duties, the head of the Counterterrorism Center at Mossad. Oded, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Reserve Colonel Enan Wahabi, whose duties we won't go into right now for fear that some mysterious force will yank us out of our chair and throw us in a damp and dark dungeon. So thank you to all of you. General Gavish, from your perspective, the fact that General Halevi's tenure had to be cut short, he resigned out of his own volition because he felt that he shared the responsibility for the failures of October the 7th and the build-up towards that, but also for the achievements that the IDF managed to get after that in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, and elsewhere. How do you view this particular turn of events that General Halevi sought that he had to resign and General Zamir is now taking over?
Well, Amir, one of the values of the Israeli Defense Forces is responsibility. And this is what General Halevi said we have to say from day one, that he is taking responsibility for what happened on the 7th of October. The day of resigning and the day of leaving his job was planned from his point of view after he served in the last 1.5 years, brought back, I would say, the deterrence of Israel, achieved with the IDF significant achievements against Hamas, against Hezbollah, and others, and Iranians, of course, Houthis. And but also the job is not done yet, but he felt that he is now in the point that he should take this responsibility one step forward, and this is why he decided to resign. And then we still have to remember that the job is not done yet. The goals of the war are still in front of us. We have still 7 different sectors that Israel have to deal with. And of course, the military itself, and I would say one of the other challenges, and all of those challenges are now in the hands of General Eyal Zamir, is of course bringing back the trust of the Israeli population in the Israeli defense forces. I think it is getting there, but it is even, I would say, much more important now that we are changing the two of them. I would like to add a word that I've heard Prime Minister Netanyahu telling General Kurila that one of the main reasons, first of all, thanked him to the enhancement of the defense of Israel, and he said that one of the reasons was the relations between him and General Halevi, and I could say from firsthand, and this is really something that you could see, the relations between those generals, the respect between both of them, and the leadership that was shown by both of them once they were together talking to the Israeli and the US forces, and there were a lot of meetings like this. So if I may join our Prime Minister in really thanking General Kurila for everything that he has done for Israel.
Indeed, you are expressing everyone's ideas here and around the country. But you remember that only a few weeks ago, when General Halevi went to the United States on a farewell tour, the Israeli chief of staff really has two counterparts. One is the CENTCOM commander, in this case Kurila, and the other one is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. In this case, it was General C.Q. Brown. And immediately after coming back to Israel, both of them learned that General Brown was asked to resign, and the new chairman would be appointed soon, nominated but not yet confirmed. Now, the question is natural and commendable as General Halevi's decision to resign is because of moral and professional accountability. Is it going to change anything substantial in the way Israel fights its wars?
Okay, I think that we have to really divide a bit the way that the Israeli chief of staff is working with the CENTCOM and with the Joint Chief of Staff. In the U.S. system, the Joint Chief of Staff is the one who is kind of advisor to the president, but he is also the one who is in charge of building the forces. But the one who's fighting in the area is General Kurila, and the regional commander, before it was the commander of EUCOM, working with Israel. Now it's the commander of CENTCOM. So from the Israeli point of view, the IDF commander is working with both of them, and this is what we've seen all along the time. I think that there won't be any change. At the end of the day, the relations between both militaries, whoever are leading in both sides, are very strong. It is really something that you could see it all along the chain of command, from a very low level of officers till the highest one. The relations are very good, very tight. We have commands which are combined. It is something which is rooted into, I would say, way of working of both forces. So I don't think really that this will do any change. At the end of the day, we are persons, and there is everyone with his own personality and the chemistry between people. But overall, I'm sure that the relations would stay very, very tight for sure under Trump administration.
Mr. Elam, General Gavish talked about the international cooperation and collaboration. Let me ask you about the interagency level. You, as a senior Mossad officer, cooperated with the IDF, with Shabak, the internal security agency. How is it being done on the very senior level between these various organizations which comprise the Israeli defense establishment? Perhaps we should also add the Ministry of Defense and some units of the Israel police. Is it going to change the fact that the civilian arms of the defense establishment, even if some reserve officers at times very senior, served there, as is the case more in Mossad than in Shabak. The change at the top of the IDF, is it going to change anything in the way Mossad and Shabak and other bodies interact with the military?
Well, first of all, I have to say that we all have to be thankful to Halevi for his tenure and his service, and under enormous circumstances that nobody have ever faced before. And I think he did it in a very, very brave manner, and we have to thank him, of course, without neglecting his role on the 7th of October, and without even neglecting his role on some of the compromises and mistakes after the 7th of October during the campaign, both in the north and the south. But nevertheless, he has a crucial part in achieving the Israeli objectives that we are right now seeing. And so we have to be very thankful. Now, regarding to your question, there isn't much any real change in within the intimate relationship between the services because of the change of the top echelon of the IDF, because the communications and the link is embedded in many years of operating together, with friction, of course, sometimes with different ideas, but nevertheless, it is a system that knows how to operate and engage together. And so I don't see any difference between that person and that person regarding the relationship between the services.
As you know, only last night, Shabak, the ISA, released its after-action reviews. These are not inquiries. The inquiry is going to be left to a commission once it is set up. But one of the lessons that the Shabak chief, Ronen Bar, pointed to was that there was a failure to distinguish between Shabak's original mission of countering terror, something that you yourself used to do at Mossad, and the fact that Hamas became a terror army and therefore could have planned an invasion. And while Shabak's duty was to give early warning of a terror act, an invasion is something else altogether, which the IDF was supposed to be in charge of, but it was not made clear to the services. So who decides which of the services is doing what? Obviously, Mossad is supposed to work abroad, not inside Israel. But for the other two, the military and Shabak, it seems that the lines are somewhat blurred.
I don't agree with that regarding Gaza. In 2013, Shabak actually took over what is called the Gaza case. And it took over on all levels, on the intelligence and security and so on. When this had occurred, all the other institutes had backed down, and I'm talking about Shabak, I'm talking about the intelligence, I'm talking about the special unit who runs assets like 504, and everybody that was involved actually stepped down from the arena, and Shabak took over. Now, this is exactly the essence of the problem that occurred in the 7th of October, because the Shabak did not manage to transfer his concept and the way he addresses a terror state instead of terror organization. He did not even realize the possibility of a major multi-division attack on Israel, because the DNA of the Shabak is regarded as foiling a terror act here and that, like in Jenin, like in Nablus, and so on. And this is, in my point of view, the major breach and for what had happened in the Shabak. They did not even have a unit that has to do some research on the overall terror state that we are facing. Shabak never before had confronted a terror state, and it didn't have the tools and the means to do it. Now, the big question is, okay, so having said that, what did they do in order to address that? And this is the major fallout that I see. They did almost nothing in order to achieve their objectives. They still maintain the known course of foiling terror without realizing that we are in a different ball game. Now, who is to blame for that? Who is to blame for that? I don't take it on a personal side, this guy or that person and so on. I think the concept had failed, and this is something that will have to be addressed on overall strategy of the Shabak, and this is something that I think is the major cause of what had happened on the 7th of October.
Right. So it seems as if the government, the cabinet, the prime minister, the defense minister, above the professional echelon, they have to make these decisions. Colonel Webbe, thank you for your patience, for waiting so long to be addressed. But on the other hand, you had a lot of time to prepare. So it evens out. Let's move to some of the arenas, the fronts that the IDF has to confront, and the new chief, General Zamir, is obviously already taking care to meet the challenges which could erupt at any moment. There is no time for a victory lap or anything in the way of a celebration. This is a very subdued event, unheard of in Israel's history. Let's take Syria, because Gaza and Lebanon are under ceasefires right now. We have heard a few days ago Israeli threats made against the new regime in Damascus on two levels. First of all, not to dare send forces into the three southernmost or southeasternmost districts, Quneitra, Dara, and Sueda, and that is in order for no hostile forces to be across the border from the Israeli-held Golan Heights, and specifically not to bother with the Druze communities, either in Sueda, where there is a concentration, or in the southern Damascus suburb of Jaramana. But then we heard that some of the Druze residents, citizens of Syria, resented what they considered an Israeli intervention in their internal affairs. So what's the status there now?
Yeah, first of all, we have to mention that General Zamir has really no time to celebrate. He has to arrange the table of the IDF internally, and in particular, the connection between the military level and the political level. I think that the first thing that we will later on in the inquiry, we will find that Israel did not act according to the military doctrine, that we tend much more to intervene as a proactive action to prevent the other side from gaining capabilities. There was something different away from the strategy that we had none before. So that on the other side of the borders, in Gaza Strip in particular, the Hamas could build this kind of capabilities. And unfortunately, the dangerous scenario it was the first mission of the Southern Command to prevent, has occurred and occurred badly. And we could see all of us, we are still living under the impact of this very bad savagery that happened there. And it's part of the Israeli discussion. Israel, the Israeli IDF is part of the Israeli society, and it will continue with us till we rebuild our military forces again with the new staff, because it's part of the Israeli society. It's not only a matter of military. In the at least in this in the reality that we are living here, and the conflict that is not ending till now. Now, we've been looking really before the war to the northern front, because the north seemed to be much more dangerous with the Iranian presence on our borders, together with Hezbollah forces. The dangerous front, as it was called in Israel. And now the reality is shifting. You said before, you mentioned that Halevi had admitted of the failure of IDF under his command. But on the other hand, we also remember the achievements of IDF on all 7 fronts, and in particular in the north, where Iran foothold has cut off. Iran is not there right now. We know that the Iranian forces, together with the previous regime forces in Syria and officers, are somehow rebuilding their forces in order to intervene differently later on in Syria and in Iraq. They are not going to give up. They still have a lot of interest to be done. They are going to choose a different, in my imagination, different strategy to influence the Syrian terrain covertly with their forces, but to create instability for the new regime and those who support the new regime, and in particular Turkey. This confrontation is now evolving to the scenario of the new reality in Syria. The two big regional states, Turkey, the Sunni non-Arab big state on the one hand, and Iran, of course, on the other side. Each of them are trying to rebuild their acts.
But Colonel Webby, let me interrupt you, please, because we are running short. In one of his earlier duties, now Lieutenant General Zamir, as a brigadier general, was in charge of the division, at that time, Division 36, controlling the Golan Heights. And this is when the Syrian civil war erupted. Refugees started coming over, the opposition. Do you think that this personal background will help him understand the problems of the Northern Front?
Yes, for sure. Every experience here is important in order to understand the terrain, the people on the other side, and especially at those days when the internal crisis had happened in Syria, and it was some kind of hybrid state, that the regime is still existing, but they are in no man land in a lot of the border areas. A lot of militias that you had to deal with as IDF. It was a new reality. Yes, there is experience, but much more we still need to take lessons from our maybe mistakes in South Lebanon in the past.
On that note, because we have less than a minute each for each of you, can you please give General Zamir just several pointers, 1, 2, 3, regarding what he should do? Obviously, he has learned his profession, but perhaps from another perspective, it is helpful to note just in short sentences what the mission of the incoming Chief of Staff is going to be. General Gavish, please. Short.
First of all, more than anything, we wish him luck. His luck is our all luck. Of course, the goals of the war, this is number one. The trust of the Israeli forces, the rebuild of the IDF, and of course, remembering the challenges that we have, the main one, which is from our neighbors from the east.
Colonel Webby?
I think that we should return to the maneuver strategy, not only special forces and a little army, because we might be intervening again.
Mr. Elam, we saw with the beepers and other special tricks that perhaps Mossad can at least complement what the IDF, including the IAF, have been doing. So maybe Colonel Webby, for all of his experience in special operations, is off the mark. Maybe you want to have Mossad play a bigger role, or don't you?
First of all, I think it is the first time with the beepers where the Mossad actually had a major impact on the overall strategy of the Middle East. It never happened before, and hopefully it will happen more. And I just want to say one word about the strategy that I recommend to General Zamir is be proactive. The best defense is offense.
Right. And right now, the top mission is getting the hostages back, those who are alive, and the bodies of those who have perished to be brought back for decent burial. For the time being, thank you, all of you, Mr. Elam, Colonel Webby, General Gavish. This has been Israel at War, an update on day 516th of the war from TV7 News Israel. For the time being, shalom from Jerusalem.
The Middle East, home to the cradle of civilization, retains a reputation from time immemorial as one of the most complex, conflict-ridden regions of the world. A cluster of nations, religions, powers, and influences, Mideast intricacies pose conundrums to even the most astute individuals. Bombarded daily, indeed every minute, by a barrage of information, some accurate, yet most of it less so, TV7 Israel invites you to watch and hear some of the most knowledgeable experts, most of whom partook in creating policies shaping this region today. Join us for Jerusalem Studio every Tuesdays and Fridays for content that truly matters.
Jerusalem Studio, now available on Spotify.